But first, voice treaty truth. Never forget, that's the activist mantra. That's what the people pushing this referendum want. First the voice, then the treaties, of course, and the reparations too. Then the truth or their truth that Australia's history is one of shame. Treaty has become such a big issue because multi-billion-dollar reparations on top of the $30 billion or so that governments already spend on Aboriginal issues is a big turn-off for voters. Hence the Prime Minister's insistence that this is not on the table.
Unexpected.
This isn't about a treaty, Ben.
But there are three parts of the Uluru Statement.
Yeah, and this is not.
So you're talking about the voice.
This is not about a treaty.
Talk about treaty in terms of states and territories. Is there a Commonwealth role for treaties? And if so, when?
Well, look, it's a long way down the track. There are processes for treaty underway in Queensland with the support, bipartisan support, of the Labor Party and the LNP. In Victoria and indeed in the Northern Territory here.
Off the table? Well, you and I know that's a lie. Indeed, in his own government's October budget, there was $5.8 million allocated to, and I quote, commence work on establishing an independent Makarrata Commission to oversee processes for agreement making and truth-telling. And this commitment for an independent Makarrata Commission mirrors the detailed diagrams in the full Uluru Statement. The full statement, of course, the PM says, is nothing more than records of a meeting. Now, to remind you, here is what the full Uluru Statement revealed about plans for a Makarrata Commission. A body to sit above the voice, to negotiate treaties between the voice that will represent the various Aboriginal tribal groups, and then the Commonwealth on the other side that will end up representing all non-Indigenous Australians. And it's worth pointing out in this diagram that the Makarrata Commission will be incredibly powerful, given it's designed to sit above, as an umpire, both the voice and the Parliament and government. Now, all of this is made plain in the government's own budget papers. So forget the Voice Treaty Truth T-shirt that Albanese wore to a Midnight Oil concert. Instead, focus on what's in his own budget papers, because nothing gets into budget papers unless the government is serious. We know too that in last year's election campaign, Labor promised $27.7 million to fund Makarrata. So the almost $6 million on the table now, well, that's just a down payment. We know today that almost $1 million of that funding has already been spent on Makarrata. We don't know exactly what, because the minister won't tell us. But, you know, you don't set up a treaty commission, allocate millions, and then start spending it if treaties aren't real, as even Linda Burney was forced to admit.
We support the Uluru Statement from the heart. We support constitutional recognition through a voice. We support Makarrata, and funding has been allocated in line with our election commitment.
Again, here's one of the key voice architects, the ones who now say the voice is nothing about treaty, admitting actually it is. Here's Noel Pearson on the whole sequencing of voice, treaty and truth.
The first precondition to a treaty is for us to have a voice, and the voice to negotiate such a treaty. It's common sense. We talked about it in the dialogues that Professor Davis and Pat Anderson chaired in 2016.
Here is the Uluru co-author Megan Davis on Treaty 2.
These are about reparations for past injustice, and they are about land, and they are about resources.
Treaties are about reparations, land and resources, says the constitutional law professor Davis. Here's another key document published by ANTARS, an Aboriginal not-for-profit group that's committed to building momentum for treaties. Now, it says a treaty contains more than symbolic recognition. A treaty recognises that First Nations people never ceded their sovereignty and creates space for First Nations communities to exercise their sovereignty through a form of self-government. It will also contain, the document says, agreements on a range of other matters, including land rights, truth-telling and compensation. Now, let's be very clear. The Voice is just the soft entry point for Australians with a lot of goodwill to arm up Aboriginal activists with constitutional rights and powers to then go after the main game, and that main game is treaty. Now, from the PM down, they're just desperately hoping you won't remember what they've said or what Labor has already funded until after the vote on the Voice. Now, the pity for them is that you will remember, I hope you will remember, and that you will vote no.